I want to explain F1 for the people who don't know anything about F1 in my life. Okay, so I got the idea a couple of weeks ago to make a video explaining the basic information about F1 for the people in my life who keep forgetting when I tell them, which is fair. While this began as something very small scale, it kind of evolved and started eating its own tail. So that meant that I started watching every race of the 2025 season to make a recap of the entire 2025 season. But because of that, the beginning of the season is coming up. This weekend is the Australian Grand Prix in Melbourne. And I figured having an explainer of the 2025 season would be helpful before the season. However, I'm still in the first half of watching and writing notes on the 2025 season. And it is now, what day is it? It's Thursday. And the first race of the 2026 season is on Sunday. So I figured let's make something short to explain what is going on just preemptively before the beginning of the season. I also got tired of writing and wanted to start doing something. So here we are. I have printed out all the drivers and a couple of bonuses, which you will find out later, and all the teams with their new logos, which was a trek. Finding the new Williams logo was a pain in the ass. Oh, disclaimer, I'm also sick as a dog. So you're just gonna have to deal with that. Sorry. So, F1. Formula 1. It's a racing series. There are other formulas that are below it. Formula 2, Formula 3, there's a Formula E as well, just for electric. It doesn't matter. Formula 1 is the one that everyone's trying to get to because it's the hardest to get into and it's the fastest. Ostensibly. In Formula 1, teams fight each other for the best car and the best driver. There are 10 teams, except you may notice there actually aren't 10 teams, there are 11 teams. That's because this year there's a new kid on the block. He's American, this is Cadillac. We'll talk about him later. But just know that before this, there were 10 teams. Every team has 2 drivers that drive at any one time. So there's 20 drivers, except this year there's 22. We'll get to it. The key points that you need to remember is it's a championship, everyone's fighting to be the fastest, every team has 2 drivers. Right? Okay, you're with me so far. Now we're going to go through the teams and the drivers, because that's the most interesting part about F1. I don't care about engineering, I don't care about cars, I don't care about any of that shit, except I have come to slightly care about cars as a result of caring about the rest of it. So we're going to go through each team and their drivers, they're 2 drivers each, and explain what their deal is, who they are, what their vibes are, and the drama surrounding each and every one of them, because there's always drama. And that's the best part. First and foremost, we have the current leaders of the grid, McLaren. They're a British team, their colours are orange and white, but they will say that it's not orange, it's papaya. Sure. Why not? Be a little fancy with it. Their drivers, as you may have gathered, are Oscar Piastri, an Australian, and Lando Norris, a Brit. These guys are the current World Championship holders in both aspects. So they hold the Constructors' Championship, and their driver, Lando Norris, holds the Drivers' Championship. What are those? Basically, you win points for getting better places in races, right? First gets a certain amount of points, second gets a second amount of points, third gets less points, etc, 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 until you get to 10. Anybody below 10 doesn't get any points. The World Drivers' Championship is each driver adds up all the points that they gathered throughout the year, and whoever has the most at the end of the year wins. And then there's the Constructors' Championship, which is about who has the best car. Makes sense because they constructed it, right? These guys had the best car last year. How do they determine who had the best car last year? They gather up both drivers from the team, pool all of the points that they earned throughout the year, add them up, and whoever has the most of all of them, in terms of the teams, wins the Constructors' Championship. These guys won the Constructors' Championship by absolutely miles last year. It was ridiculous. They won like 6 races before the end of the year. It's not common for Constructors' Championships to be tied up this quickly, like 6 races before the end of this, season of 20 or so races. Normally it's in the last few. Teams aren't just made up of their drivers. There are also a bunch of crew and a bunch of people who are running the team. The people that are running the team are typically known as the team principal. They're the big boss of the team, or the CEO. This team has both. Both of them are very involved. The team principal is very involved, and the CEO is very involved. So we're going to discuss them. I lost the footage of me discussing the team principal and the CEO, so here's a voiceover of them. The team principal is Andrea Stella. He is kind of a quiet guy. He doesn't talk to the media much other than the stock standard team principal stuff. And then there's the CEO, Zach Brown. He is an American and he's seen as a very kind of like publicly friendly dude. There's all sorts of discussion about whether he's a good person or, the scum of the earth. I feel like the fact that he is worth about $50 million and Andrea Stella is also worth about that much is kind of an answer to that question. The team principal and CEO of a Formula One team, they're doing what they need to do to make money for the team. That's about it. I will say though, they've both done a lot for the team. McLaren used to be really, really bad, and they had been for quite a while, several decades in fact. They were doing really, really poorly in F1. When Zach Brown and Andrea Stella came on to be CEO and team principal respectively, they did a massive turnaround. McLaren were basically nowhere, even in the early 2020s. And in 2024, they basically turned it all the way around and Lando became a championship contender. And in 2025, Lando won the championship and Oscar was his primary competition for that championship. So they've done well by the team. They have an interesting principle called papaya rules. Basically, most teams on the grid run with a number 1 driver and a number 2 driver, right? The driver that they expect to do well and the driver that they expect to support the guy doing well so that they can win the Constructors' Championship. McLaren doesn't do that. They have a very strong principle of having 2 number 1 drivers. They have this thing called papaya rules, which is basically because they have 2 number 1 drivers, they allow their drivers to fight each other on the grid for points, which is not regular in comparison to the other teams. The only caveat to this papaya rule is that you are not allowed to take each other out in the race, which means you're not allowed to crash into each other. Now, crashing into each other is kind of an occupational hazard for F1 drivers. It's going to happen. If you're really fighting each other for a position on the race, you got to be bold sometimes, which means that every now and then you're going to crash, right? Their papaya rule is that you are allowed to fight each other on track, but you are not allowed to take each other out no matter what. There's a lot of talk about whether papaya rules are fair, about whether papaya rules are a good idea in the Formula One kind of community. It's a fandom. In the Formula One fandom, there's a lot of discussion about whether papaya rules are a good thing or a bad thing. I don't have any opinions on it at the moment. It's good in some aspects, it's bad in some aspects. Clearly it's worked out for them because they are the current Constructors' Champion and their driver Lando Norris is the current Drivers' Champion. So, it's worked fine for them so far. We'll get into that in my 2025 video. On to our next team, Red Bull. They are Austrian for some reason. It doesn't really matter. Now, these are the guys that everybody knows about. Everybody knows Red Bull Racing. Everybody knows their first driver, Max Verstappen. He is the current driver on the grid. Lando Norris is the World Drivers' Champion, sure, and good for him. But everybody knows Max Verstappen. I knew Max Verstappen before I knew anything about Formula One, and presumably so do you. Max Verstappen, that guy. Yep, he's everywhere. There's a good reason he's everywhere. He won the World Drivers' Championship 4 times in a row before Lando finally caught up to him in 2025. He had been fighting him the year before and had lost. So Max Verstappen is currently a 4-time world champion. He got all of his world championships consecutively, 2021, 2, 3, and 4. All of them. He's crazy. in a good way and a bad way. He's a very good driver. Red Bull are complicated. Max Verstappen's really good. They're not necessarily really good. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. They have a complicated relationship with their second seat driver, who this year is Isaac Hadjar. He is a French driver who was a rookie last year. It is his second year on the F1 grid. He used to drive for Red Bull's second team last year. We'll get to it. Red Bull have a bit of a second seat curse. Max Verstappen is in the first seat, and he will be until he retires. But their second seat is a little bit cursed. This curse began arguably with Mark Webber in 2010, who was the second driver for Sebastian Vettel. That's a video in itself. But the current second seat curse began when Max Verstappen entered the team in, I think, 2016. His second drivers started really struggling to keep up with him and to keep Red Bull from not being awful to them. Red Bull are pretty cutthroat with their second drivers because Max is so good. Their second seat curse began with Daniel Ricciardo, an Australian driver, who was by all accounts really good. There are arguments about whether it was his fault or not. Anyway, he was ousted by the team. They fired him and they put Pierre Gasly in, who is on the grid here. After Pierre Gasly, who started not performing as well as Max, because nobody can, it was Alex Albon, who is up... Where is Alex? There. Alex Albon. He didn't perform as well as Max either, so they fired him. And then they put Sergio Perez in the second seat. He started doing well, but not performing as well as Max Verstappen, so then he was fired. And then Liam Lawson, a rookie. Where is he? Liam Lawson was put into the Red Bull second seat for the first 2 races of the 2025 season, and then they fired him and put Yuki Tsunoda in. Technically, they demoted him, but it doesn't matter. Yuki Tsunoda did not perform as well as Max Verstappen. So you can see they have a bit of a curse going on. Since Max Verstappen started in Red Bull, every single second driver of his has been fired for not living up to Max's expectations, which isn't really fair. The problem that Red Bull have is that they keep making a more and more unpredictable car, and Max Verstappen is just so good that he can take the car to a victory, and the other drivers can't. Point being, Isaac Hadjar is their second driver for 2026. We are all crossing our fingers that he will not die in this seat. He probably will, because this curse is long-standing. However, we're hoping for the best for Isaac Hadjar. That is because their team principal has been fired and replaced. We love to see it. Their old team principal was Christian Horner. He had been their team principal since basically the team started in the 2000s. Oh, we've got so much beef with Christian Horner. Some people really like him. I really hate him. I think he's the worst. I think he's terrible. He kept firing second drivers just because they weren't as good as their first driver, except for the fact that that's how it's supposed to be in F1. The second driver is not going to be as good as the first driver because they're supposed to be supporting the first driver. Anyway, Christian Horner was fired in the middle of last year. There's a lot of drama around that. I don't know exactly why, but it boils down to he was essentially being inappropriate with some of his subordinates the year before, sending them inappropriate messages, and then randomly in the middle of 2025 they decided that was enough and they were going to fire him, even though all of that stuff came out in 2024. Whatever. The team is now being run by Laurent Mekies. He's a pretty good guy, it seems. As good as a team principal of F1 can be. He used to be the team principal of the second team. Red Bull have 2 teams because they're just like that. We'll talk about it later. He was promoted to the team principal of Red Bull. And since then, they've been doing pretty well. That's why everybody hopes that Isaac isn't going to be eaten alive. Because Christian Horner is no longer there to do the eating alive. Also, there is another guy who used to be running Red Bull, who was technically a consultant advisor, but everybody knew he was basically running the scene. His name is Helmut Marko. He is German, and he is the worst. He is ancient, he is horrifying, and we have hated him for a long time. There is basically no one who thinks that Helmut Marko is a good guy, primarily because he is a massive racist and a misogynist. But that's not all that uncommon in F1. Regardless, I hate him. I'm glad he's gone. He was fired at the end of last year. This is why we have hope for Isaac Hadjar. Oh, their colours are navy and red, because that's the colour of the can and their logo. On to the third team, Mercedes. Now everybody knows Mercedes. Mercedes-Benz, they're a massive car brand. They are the first team in the lineup that are actually known for cars, as opposed to McLaren, which are known for nothing, and Red Bull, which are known for energy drinks and other random shit. Mercedes have been in F1 for a long time. They are a very old team. They are typically quite good. They were massively dominant in the 2010s, where they won 7. They won 7 world championships in a row. They fell off a little bit towards 2020. And since then have been high on the table, yes, but struggling to win the world championship in any regard. Their two drivers are George Russell and rookie Kimi Antonelli. He was a rookie in 2025. This is his second year on the grid. This is a common thing currently for the drivers' grid. We'll get to it. Kimi Antonelli is Italian, and George Russell is British. He is disgustingly British. Mercedes are a German team, and they have a German team principal. His name is Toto Wolff. He is typically seen as a relatively competent team principal. I like him as much as I can like anybody on the F1 grid. They are expected to do pretty well in the next year, 2026, but all of that could be thrown out the window, and I am not confident enough to make predictions about how the 2026 season will go. Kimi Antonelli, the rookie from 2025, was brought in to replace Lewis Hamilton, who was a dominant World Championship driver for Mercedes until 2025, when he moved to Ferrari. This was a big move, a big thing. Since Mercedes hadn't been winning consistently since 2021, Lewis stuck it out for quite a few years, and then he moved on to Ferrari. Now, there was a big kerfuffle about who was going to replace Lewis Hamilton at Ferrari. Toto Wolff brought in Kimi Antonelli, who he had been basically priming to move to F1 really quickly. He is a young man. He is 19. He began F1 when he was 18. He skipped one of the formulas. Generally, you go from Formula 4 into Formula 3, into Formula 2, then into Formula 1 if you're good enough. He skipped Formula 3, I believe, went straight to Formula 2, because Toto Wolff asked. And they were like, okay. He is admittedly good, but he's a rookie, so he's not going to be as good as Lewis Hamilton. Nobody expects him to be. Their colours are silver and turquoise. This kind of turquoisey blue. Now, we're getting into it. We have Ferrari. The Scuderia Ferrari. They are an Italian team. They are basically the Italian thing. There is a common saying, there are two religions in Italy, Catholicism and the Scuderia Ferrari. Their drivers are Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton, who moved to Ferrari in 2025. They are the oldest team on the grid. They have been consistently in F1 since it began in 1950. They are a 75, now 76-year-old team. They have their ups and downs. Currently, they're in a down. They're so old that they have no excuse for being bad, but they are bad at the moment. They have Lewis Hamilton, who is a 7-time world championship. That is the world record for the most world championships of all time. Tied with Michael Schumacher, doesn't matter. And Charles Leclerc is also seen as an amazing driver. He should be winning all the time. Everybody believes that. However, Ferrari have consistently fumbled ever since Charles came in, but also before that. They had a dominating period in the 2000s where they were just sweeping everything, and then they really fell off into the 2010s and have been fallen off since then. Ferrari are consistently the most disappointing on the grid. They have no excuse to be bad, and they still manage to be bad. Their team principal is a French guy called Frédéric Vasseur. You'd think that the Italian team would have an Italian team principal and Italian drivers. Apparently bad things happen though when that runs. When an Italian is in Ferrari, things go bad. Charles Leclerc, notably, is the first Monegasque driver in history. He is the first driver from Monaco, which is important because one of the most famous tracks in the F1 lineup is the Monaco Grand Prix. Charles Leclerc was the first Monegasque driver to win the Monaco Grand Prix. He won that in 2024 after a string of very bad luck, which was mainly Ferrari fumbling the ball. This man has been through so many horrors. He deserves better than Ferrari, and they still somehow manage to fumble it. I would argue Charles Leclerc is one of the best drivers on the grid, but Ferrari have fumbled the ball so bad that he has not won a World Drivers' Championship, and he hasn't actually won a race in a long time. I stand 10 toes down saying that that is Ferrari's fault and not Charles Leclerc's fault. Argue with me in the comments. Oh, their colours are red. Obviously, it's Ferrari. Their fans are called the Tifosi. Anytime that there is an Italian race on, the entire stand is a wash of red. And if you are wearing anything other than Ferrari merchandise in the grandstands, you will get assassinated. Ferrari fans are crazy. I say that as a Ferrari fan. Actually, no, that's not true. I'm a Charles Leclerc fan. I'm a Ferrari hater. I hate Ferrari more than probably Charles does. Okay, next up, we're skipping over these guys for a minute. We have Williams. Williams are a very old team also, but they have had periods of time where they were not in F1. They're about as old as Ferrari. They've just had stints where they weren't running in F1. They're a British team, and they have been doing not well for the last quite a long time. Since about the 90s was when they had their last kind of really competitive period. But in 2025, they actually did not bad. Before they were consistently backmarkers, or they were in the lowest 10 of the 20 drivers on the grid. But last year they did pretty well. They got 2 podiums. Their driver Carlos Sainz, who came from Ferrari. He used to hold the seat that Lewis Hamilton did at Ferrari. He moved to Williams. He got 2 podiums last year. He got 3rd place twice in 2025, which is crazy because Williams were really bad. Their car was really bad. That is because they were focusing on 2026 development rather than 2025. 2026 this year is a year of big regulation changes from the FIA, or the governing body of F1. There's big change on how the cars are built, how the cars run, things like that. Williams kind of said 2025 is a wash. They were really bad in 2024. A new team principal took over. His name is James Vowles. He's widely seen as like a pretty reasonable guy and also a pretty good team principal. He took Williams from being nowhere to being somewhere. He took over in 2024. He saw what they were developing for 2025 and was like, yeah, this is just not going to work. Let's just call it a wash and focus on 2026. So they did. And somehow, Carlos Sainz pulled out 2 podiums. Just shows you how much of a good driver Carlos Sainz is and how bad of a team Ferrari are. These guys are kind of like consistent underdogs. Both of their drivers, Alex Albon and Carlos Sainz, were booted from bigger teams after not performing, except their not performing is more of a team issue. Alex Albon, you might remember, was the second driver for Max Verstappen for a long time, so he was booted from Red Bull for not performing. And Carlos Sainz was the driver for Ferrari, who was booted for not performing and taken over by Lewis Hamilton. These drivers were both underappreciated by their previous teams. Williams is their opportunity to kind of take it back. They deserve a win, right? They have been through so much already. They just deserve to be doing well. And I would argue the team also deserve to be doing well. So when Williams are doing well, everybody's having a good time, right? If they're winning, nobody really loses. Their colours are like a royal blue and a white. You can see up here, their uniform is mostly white because there's so much blue on the grid already. There's too much blue. Now, returning to the guys that we skipped over earlier, this looks like the Red Bull logo because it kind of is. These are the Racing Bulls. They are basically the second team for Red Bull. The team is so rich that they just made another team. This is the rookie team for Red Bull, really. They are a midfield team. They're constantly fighting for kind of low-level points with Williams, Aston Martin, and a couple of others that we'll get to. These guys are generally not bad. They used to be run by Laurent Mekies, who now runs Red Bull. But they did pretty well last year, actually. Isak Hadjar, who is now a driver for Red Bull Racing, was one of their drivers at Racing Bulls, and he got a podium last year, which is big because he was a rookie. So Isak Hadjar was the only rookie in the entire grid of 6 rookies last year to get a podium, and he did it with, quite a bit of luck, but also quite a bit of skill. I forgot that Kimi Antonelli also got a podium last year because he got it after other people were disqualified, so he didn't stand on the podium. But he did get a podium, so good job, Kimi. So good for him. Last year, Racing Bulls also had Liam Lawson, who was booted down from Red Bull. He had 2 races with Red Bull, and then Christian Horner decided that he wasn't good enough and booted him back down to Racing Bulls, because Christian Horner's the worst. Then they took Yuki Tsunoda up to Red Bull. This was controversial. It's not really either of these guys' fault, in my opinion. I blame everything on Christian Horner. Basically, Yuki drove for Red Bull for most of the year last year. Liam drove for Racing Bulls for most of the year last year. Once Yuki went up to Red Bull, he started doing really bad. Actually worse than he was doing on their second team. For example, there was one race where he qualified, I think it was 11th on the grid out of 20, and Liam qualified 20th in the Red Bull. And then that flipped exactly. Once Liam went to Racing Bulls, he got an 11th place qualification, and Yuki Tsunoda at Red Bull got a 20th place. So you can kind of see it's more of the team's fault, less of the driver's fault. This year, Yuki Tsunoda has been bumped from the grid through no fault of his own, I would argue, but it doesn't matter. His place has been taken over by a 2026 rookie, the only rookie on the grid for 2026, Arvid Lindblad. He comes up from Formula 2, and he's widely seen as a good guy, and a good driver. But he's a rookie, so he's probably not going to be great. Not his fault. Rookies are always bad. They're called rookie mistakes for a reason, right? So, that's Racing Bulls. Their colours are white, I guess. Their colour is also like this pale blue thing. It's white. Got it? Good. Next up is Aston Martin. These guys are a British luxury car company that started recently-ish in Formula 1. I think it was the 2000s. I hate them. I hate Aston Martin. They are a very nothing burger team. They are solidly midfield. They're never really fighting for anything above 7th place. Their drivers are complicated. I have no idea who their team principal is, and I don't really care, because their CEO, or technically the guy who owns the majority of the team, is the father of one of their drivers, Lance Stroll. Lance Stroll is a Canadian driver who, I will say, is not awful. He is particularly good in wet weather, but that's about it. Anytime there's a dry race, which is most of the time, he does really bad. Aston Martin are kind of the nepo babies of F1. Lawrence Stroll, who owns the team, bought the team and allowed them to re-enter F1 if they gave Lance Stroll a seat. Okay. Their other driver is Fernando Alonso. He is the oldest driver on the grid, the driver with the most experience. He was driving in F1 before I was even born, and I am 22 years old. He was a world champion in the late 2000s and has been driving all over the place since then. He joined Aston Martin, and this was kind of a hope that Aston Martin would get off the ground a little bit and stop being arse. It did not work. Fernando Alonso is in the pits of hell, and he has been since he moved to Ferrari in the 2010s. Some of his radio messages are brilliant because he's in the trenches all the time. He is too old for this shit. He moved to Aston Martin to retire and have fun, and he is not having fun. Their colours are this weird kind of turquoisey dark greenish and white. Aston Martin fans are few and far between, and I don't know how they do it because they're always terrible. Okay, on to the new kids on the grid. We have Cadillac. Alright, these guys are a brand new team for 2026. They are the 11th team on the grid, which hasn't happened for a long time. Normally there's only 10. They are expected to be really bad this year. Sorry, but it's because they're a brand new team. It's not really their fault. Any brand new team is always going to be bad, but honestly, I kind of love them anyway. I appreciate that they're here. Their drivers are Valtteri Bottas and Sergio Checo Perez. Valtteri Bottas was the second driver for Lewis Hamilton at Mercedes for the big period of time where Lewis was just winning back-to-back championships. Bang, 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 bang. He was very underappreciated by Mercedes, I would argue. He's a good driver. He won several races for them during that period of time, but he was kind of thrown to the wayside. Last year he was their third driver or reserve driver, and he became mostly kind of a media presence. So a lot of people really love Valtteri Bottas, including me. He is an honorary Australian for reasons I don't care to explain at the moment. He's a Finnish driver, and he's great. I'm glad that he's at Cadillac. He knows what he's doing. He's a veteran driver, which is good for a brand new team. The same principle is basically true of Sergio Perez. Sergio Perez was the second driver at Red Bull for Max Verstappen for quite a while. He is notoriously really good at street tracks. He is known by some people as the king of the streets. He's great. He is a very good driver. He somehow dragged that arse Red Bull car that Max Verstappen was absolutely winning in and everybody else sucked in, to a couple of race wins and some pretty really good places. Cadillac, since they're a brand new team, basically decided to pick up two drivers who know what they're doing. They're expected to be bad, but I'm glad they're here. That logo, though, is atrocious. What is that? Why is it so complicated and yet nothing is going on? Hate that. Their colours are black. And that's it. Black and white, but black. Next up, kind of new kids on the grid, Audi. These guys were a team called Kick Sauber last year. Sauber have been on the grid for quite a while under a million different names. They've been around for a while, but they were acquired last year by Audi, who are pretty dominant in other motorsport kind of areas. Audi haven't been in F1 before, so we don't know what to expect from them. They might be really bad. They might be not terrible. Previously, they were really bad. While they were Sauber, they were doing really, really poorly. They were consistently at the back and not getting any points. But I have hope for them. Their drivers are Nico Hülkenberg, who has been on the grid for a long time. He is a veteran driver and he is great. He has never been on a team that really kind of gives him a good car, but he's always been awesome and he sticks with it, which we love to see. Everybody loves Nico Hülkenberg. Last year he got his first podium. It was expected that he would never get one because he was always on a team that was just terrible. But last year, through some luck and a lot of skill driving in the wet, he won his first podium at Silverstone, England last year in a wet race. Brilliant, crazy, first podium that Kick Sauber has had ever. Their second driver is Gabriel Bortoleto, who's a Brazilian driver. He was a rookie in 2025. He won Formula 2. He was very dominant in Formula 2. So it was expected that he would go bad with Kick Sauber because they're a bad team. Sorry guys, but you are. And he kind of did. But that's okay because he was a rookie. And he's in F1, which is enough of an achievement in itself. Their team spirit is pretty good. I think whenever Sauber are having a good day, I'm having a good day, because they shouldn't be, frankly. They're so bad. Anyway, last year they were really bad. This year we have no idea. Their colours now are silver and red, which is a problem because we already have a silver team and we already have a red team. So identifying them on the grid is going to be slightly difficult. Doesn't matter. We'll be fine. There's enough blue on the grid as it is. On to the next team. Haas. I love these guys. I will fully admit my bias for Haas. I really love these guys. They're an American team, which is a point against them. But they're brand new in terms of F1. They joined in the 2010s. And they've always been really bad. God love them, they've always been really bad. These guys are kind of perpetually sweet. They used to be run by a guy called Gunther Steiner, who was not perpetually sweet. He was perpetually a bit of a hard ass. And their drivers also used to be kind of Nepo baby-ish, very Aston Martin coded. However, that driver left, was fired. And Gunther Steiner, their team principal, left, was fired. And the team principal role was taken over by Ayo Komatsu, who was the lead engineer for the team. He is a Japanese man and oh my god, he's so sweet. He's so nice. They are always doing really bad. They're always in the wars. But Ayo never kind of blames it on the drivers as far as I can tell. He's just polite, which is so rare to find on this grid. I'm so happy about Haas. I love Haas. I really want them to do well at all times. If they're doing well, I'm doing well. And everybody else should too. Their drivers are Esteban Ocon, who is French, and I don't care to find out anything else about him, and Ollie Behrman, who was a 2025 rookie. He is a British driver who did really well in F2, as well as Gabriel Bortoleto, and he got bumped up to Haas in F1, and did really poorly for the beginning of the year because he's a rookie and he's in Haas, God love him. But towards the end of the year, he really started turning it out. He got a 5th place in, I think it was Mexico. I actually lied, he got 4th place. He got 4th place in Mexico, and he did pretty well in the United States Grand Prix before and the Brazilian Grand Prix after that. He's been turning it out. He was the primary reason that Haas did so well in the Constructors' Championship for them, and that earns them quite a bit more money for the next year. He got a 5th place in a Haas. That never happens. That was crazy skill, that was crazy luck, that was crazy strategy by the team. He absolutely dominated in that Haas, and we love to see it. He did really well. Esteban Ocon did not. He did fine. But again, Esteban Ocon is French, and I don't care to find anything else about him. Ollie Behrman, if he's doing well, I'm doing well. If Haas and Ayo Komatsu are doing well, I'm doing well. I love to see them. Their colours are white and red. We're hoping that they're going to be a little bit better this year. But if they're not, we're still going to love them, okay? Oh, God. Now on to the scum of the grid. Alpine. They are awful, and they are French. You may have noticed I have an issue with the French. What to say about Alpine? So these guys used to be Renault, the engine manufacturer, but Alpine is their kind of like French luxury car brand version of Renault. It's like their luxury division. So they entered F1 under the luxury division. They're the worst. They're terrible. They're always doing terrible, and I don't feel sorry for them because their team principal is a guy called Flavio Briatore. Ooh, God, we've got issues with Flavio Briatore. He used to be the team principal for Renault at the end of the 2000s, and there was a big scandal that happened called Crashgate, where essentially their first driver was about to win the world championship, and Flavio Briatore, specifically, not anybody else on the team, Flavio Briatore called up the second driver on the radio and told him, I want you to crash your car so that we can ensure that our first driver wins this race and wins the championship. And then he did. And he was indicted by the FIA. He was banned for life from being part of Formula One. And then he went to a French court and had the ruling overturned. So now he's back. I'm never going to forgive the French for that. Their drivers last year were Pierre Gasly, who is French. And again, I do not care to find out anything more about him, except for the fact that he got a hair transplant before the season last year, and all of the other drivers, specifically Max Verstappen, made jokes about it. He had this awful haircut because he had a transplant. It was kind of like a micro bang, and that's why he's wearing a hat in this photo. Anyway, Pierre Gasly, French, he's fine. He used to be a driver for Red Bull and he was ostensibly not bad. But he's at Alpine, so he's consistently doing awful. There was some drama surrounding the second seat at Alpine last year because Flavio Briatore is the worst. They began the year with rookie Jack Doohan, who is an Australian, and unfortunately I do have to back him due to that. He ran about 5 races for Alpine last year, maybe 6. But because he was underperforming in an Alpine, he was replaced by Franco Colapinto, an Argentinian driver who was also a rookie. He started doing just as bad as Jack Doohan, but Flavio Briatore didn't have anybody to replace him with, so he just stayed on for the rest of the year. Alpine were the backmarkers. Until the middle of the year, they got no points, which means they did not score above 10th place in any race in the first half of the year. And Flavio Briatore has the gall to blame it on either one of these drivers. The hatred that I hold in my heart for Flavio Briatore, I doubt will ever be topped by anybody on the grid. Ever. Even Helmut Marko. Their colours are blue and pink. For some reason, their primary colour is blue, even though there's a million other blue teams on the grid, and they're the newest blue team on the grid. Just go with the pink. Just commit to the pink. On that note, that's all the teams and all the drivers here. These two are here because they were important last year and I needed to print out their photos because they were there. But Yuki Tsunoda is not on the grid for 2026. He has been replaced at Red Bull by Isaac Hadjar, and Isaac Hadjar's place at Racing Bulls has been taken over by Arvid Lindblad, who is the only rookie on the 2026 grid. Jack Doohan, as previously mentioned, was replaced by Franco Colapinto at Alpine. Are we all on the same page? Great. My camera stopped recording, but luckily it was only a little bit at the end. Okay. An important note for the 2025 season is that there were 6 rookies on the grid. That never happens. I think the last time there were 6 rookies or more on the grid, it was like 15 years ago or something ridiculous like that. The last time we had a whole bunch of rookies in one year, it was 2019 and there were 3 of them. That was Lando Norris, George Russell, and Alex Albon. 3 was considered a lot. This year there were 6. Those guys were Kimi Antonelli for Mercedes, Isaac Hadjar for Racing Bulls, Liam Lawson for Red Bull, then Racing Bulls, Jack Doohan, then replaced by Franco Colapinto for Alpine, Gabby Bortoletto for Kick Sauber. I'm pointing at Audi, but it was Kick Sauber. And Ollie Behrman for Haas. A lot of them did really well. I was impressed by a lot of the rookies from last year. A lot of people randomly expected Kimi Antonelli to be better than all of the other rookies because he was at Mercedes, which I don't think was entirely fair. Sure, Mercedes had a better car than probably all of the other rookies, just because they're on middle to lower teams. But he's still a rookie. They call him rookie mistakes for a reason. He's going to fuck up. And there's nothing wrong with that. He's also 18 when he started. He's now 19, but he was 18 when he started driving for Mercedes, one of the biggest teams in F1 history. Let's lay off him a little bit, shall we? I'm confident he'll do fine going forward. He was great last year. He really turned it out. And I'm confident that he will also turn it out this year. Mercedes have a pretty promising car in 2026. So I'm sure he'll be fine. Isak Hadjar also did really well last year. He took a Racing Bulls car, which is a solidly midfield team, to a third place podium as a rookie. He did really well, and that's why he was promoted to the Red Bull seat in 2026. I would argue Liam also did really well. A lot of people think he did terrible because he was in the Red Bull and he kept doing really badly. I think he did fine. That Red Bull was impossible to drive, as proven by Yuki Tsunoda, who has been on the grid for quite a while, not being able to drive it, and Max Verstappen, who is arguably the best driver of all time, being unable to drive that car to a championship, despite the fact that last year the car was also virtually impossible to drive and he won the championship, and before that it was getting worse. So I don't think it was Liam's fault, and I have to stand on that because he's a Kiwi, thus he is an honorary sibling of the Australians. He's always at the scene of the crime though. He gets into a lot of accidents, and he blames a lot of those accidents on other people. We'll talk about that more in my next video. Also, Ollie Behrman did really well last year. Nobody was expecting him to do really well last year because he was in a Haas. And Haas are notoriously, I love them, but really bad. He brought his Haas up to, I think 4th place was his highest position, but he was consistently getting in the top 10, which is big for Haas. They won a lot of points because of Ollie Behrman. Esteban Ocon was consistently being outperformed by Ollie Behrman, especially towards the end of the year. Ollie's great. I want him to succeed. Now, heading into 2026, we have a big regulation change. The FIA, which is the governing body of Formula One, have determined that the cars now need to have completely different specs. They are now 50% fuel run and 50% battery run. Before it was about a 70-30 split. They had a kind of battery boost for overtaking and things like that, but now it is 50-50. Going into 2026, the cars are smaller, the cars are lighter, but a lot of people are expecting this to be a really poor season, a really bad season to watch, because the batteries in the car have proven to not be amazing at holding charge, which makes sense because they're putting out a lot of charge. It's going to be really difficult, especially towards the beginning of the year, to overtake because it's a lot of battery management. A lot of people saying that this is the death of F1 and that it's going to be a really awful season and a really boring season and nothing is going to happen and, nobody's going to be able to overtake anybody, blah, blah, blah. I don't think so. Everybody says that this is going to be the death of F1 whenever there's a big regulation change. They said it when electric power was brought in at all to Formula One. I do think it's going to be a slower season because more teams are going to be figuring out how to make their car work, but that always happens in a year with new regulations. I'm looking forward actually to this year, primarily just because I like F1. This year, Arvid Lindblad is the only rookie on the grid, which is pretty standard. Normally there's only one or two. Because of the spec changes, there have been a lot of public tests and a lot of private tests as well. On the back of that testing, which I would say not to put too much stock in, there's a lot of chatter going around the 2026 Mercedes engine, which is expected to be really good because Mercedes found a bit of a loophole in the regulations to make their engine run better. I don't care to go into that at all because I don't know enough about it, but also, again, I don't care about cars. Mercedes also sell their engine to McLaren, Williams, and Alpine. So anybody with a Mercedes engine is expected to do pretty alright, at least for the beginning part of the year. There's been some drama around it because the way that it's performing really well is technically a loophole in the regulations. Lots of people were claiming that this is kind of cheating and against the spirit of the rules. This is not really a thing in F1. There is really no cheating or being against the spirit of the rules in F1. Everybody's trying to pull something over on the other teams. Always. If anybody says, oh, they're cheating, so is everybody else. Sorry. I probably should rephrase that. I didn't rephrase that, so you get a voiceover. Basically, it's complicated. The line between innovation and cheating is very hotly debated in F1, and in my opinion, they're just mad that they didn't think of it first. There is really no spirit of the rules because people have been breaking the rules and getting away with it for the entire history of F1. There's talk about whether that particular loophole in the engineering of the engine is going to be banned. Dunno, because the FIA hasn't decided yet. They're just allowing them to run for the moment, and on Sunday we'll see how they go. Audi are using their own engine this year, which we'll see how that goes. Ferrari also make their own engine and they sell it to Haas, so Haas uses a Ferrari engine. Red Bull are working with Ford to create their own engine for both of their teams this year. Personally, I'm hoping for Oscar Piastri to do well. He did really, really well last year in the McLaren. The McLaren had a really dominant car last year, but he was leading the Drivers' Championship for the majority of the year, actually, until he started having some trouble towards the latter half of the year. I really want him to do well. Australian drivers have never won a world championship before. There have been several who have been really close. He almost had it last year. I just want him to get a win. He's also just fun. I like Oscar Piastri. He's a fun guy. He's a good driver and he's entertaining. Lando is the current World Drivers' Championship. He will be fighting very hard to hold on to the Drivers' Championship, of course. Max Verstappen is going to be fighting to regain his World Championship. He wants it back. I also personally would like for Ferrari to be doing better. They have been fumbling real bad. I really would like them to stop fumbling because I really like both of their drivers. They're great. They deserve a win. They've been in the wars. I'll get to it in my next video. Oh my god. Also, of course, I want Haas to do well. I don't think they will, but I want them to do well. They're just sweet and I love them. It looks like Aston Martin is going to do really bad because they are developing their own engine with Honda, I think. And it has had a lot of problems in testing. It has blown up several times. I don't think they're going to do well. That makes sense. But if they don't, I wonder what is going to happen to Fernando Alonso. Remember, he has been driving in F1 for over 20 years, maybe 25 years. He's a world champion, but he's been consistently doing really badly with Aston Martin because they're Aston Martin. I don't know what's going to go on there. Look out for it. Might be interesting. We'll see what Alpine does. I hope they do badly out of karma. Not only for Jack Doohan, who I have to stand up for because he's Australian, but also because I hate Flavio Briatore. And everybody should hate Flavio Briatore. Cadillac and Audi are going to be interesting because they're the new kids on the grid. Going to be interesting to see how they do. Williams, everybody's hoping that they do well because they've been working so hard on their 2026 car and their drivers are great and they've been underappreciated for a long time. In testing, it has looked a bit rough for them. I'm holding out hope that it's just growing pains and that by the time Sunday comes around and the first race is here, it's going to go well, but it's not looking promising because they're really having trouble getting all of their stuff to Australia. Apparently their cargo has been massively overweight. It's not looking good for us boys, but I really hope they do well. Also, we're looking out for Isak Hadjar. We're hoping that he doesn't die in the second Red Bull seat. It's looking promising, at least more promising than it was last year for Yuki Tsunoda and Liam Lawson because Christian Horny and Helmut Fuckass is no longer running the team. It's Laurent Mekies now. And we're happy about that because he seems to be a not terrible person. So we got fingers crossed for them. Okay, that's that. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. This was good fun. I can't believe I did all this. Keep an eye out for my next video where I recap the entire 2025 season if I get my ass around to it. If you want to see it, let me know and I'll do my best to make it. Okay. See you guys later. This was great. Bye.